All right. Um, yeah, I'm Nick Craswell, and Seth, co-author, is here in the room. This is a thing that may not matter to you, which is our perspective on measurement from like a product development point of view. But definitely everything that goes on here matters to us. Like there's a lot of relevant things, massive number of relevant things so far, even this morning, to what we do. But I think it was Paul, our first author in particular, who wanted to communicate our perspective on this stuff back to the conference. And so really there's nothing super new here. It's more a collection of concerns. These are some issues that we have in industry. And it's going to be hard to cover everything because there's a lot of issues that we mention in the paper. So, but yes, data and evaluation are central. We've heard a lot of things. In the product, we use metrics to make decisions, which is like maybe what Mark was just talking about. Is that like, okay, we've got some new versions of a thing, we want to know which is better so that we can deploy this for our users. So a lot of the analog of writing a paper is deploying an improvement, and you want to make sure that it's actually better. We actually want to track quality over time, which is actually very difficult because the data is always changing, the queries are always changing. It's hard to keep the old system around deployed on the old data or the new data. Like that's actually very tricky, tracking things. We use it for opportunity analysis, so what's broken in the product. We use it for experimentation and getting to the stage where we have a candidate of an improvement that we want to then try and ship. And then this whole thing is driven by the metrics. So I think the design of the metrics ends up being, determines what the product you get is. And so an analogy, it's not a perfect analogy at all, is where you're building an IR system for people, which is like you're running a restaurant. And so the search users are the patrons of the restaurant. And when I joined Microsoft, I wanted to work with Stephen Robertson, but I also wanted to get, this is 20 years ago, I wanted to get access to clicks, because if we only just knew what users were clicking, that would be so much information. That would be a great thing to know. And I spent a long time writing papers about, click data and what it means and all this kind of stuff. And that is useful, but actually sometimes people click things and they regret it. That actually wasn't what they wanted. So I don't know what the perfect analogy is here, but like, did they eat the food or not? Actually, some people look at the menu outside the door of the restaurant and don't even order anything. So like, there's cases of failure that are kind of indicated, but actually it's a pretty low bar. Like sometimes people do eat the food and they just didn't like it. So yeah, you can actually check the food as well. So maybe the Cranfield setup is a bit like saying, well, when the order is a bacon cheeseburger, then do we have bacon on the cheeseburger? That's like a check you can do. It's not the real user checking it, but it's someone who's an annotator is telling you whether things tend to be as described. And then sometimes they really don't like it because you've messed up and they actually complain. So, but these are rare events. So it's actually kind of, it's actually kind of hard to know if they really liked what you wanted, because they could, eat the food, click the result, it passes all your checks that your annotators did. They didn't complain, but maybe they really didn't like it. And maybe even if you ask them, they don't tell you in a restaurant, I guess. And so what they really do is they vote with their feet as well. So so you could ask them. There's this survey called the Net Promoter Score where you can say, would you recommend this search engine to your friends and colleagues or not? And that maybe that would tell you, or maybe the fact that they come back later or they tell their friends about it is kind of an indication of success. So actually we have this wide range of indicators where we annotate or we get feedback from real users, but it's incomplete. But really when value is demonstrated in a product, that's indicated also by usage, which is that people will keep using the product. And if it's really bad, they'll... actually, if there's value in the product, people might even use it when it's broken, because they're getting so much value from using the product that they're willing to put up with like friction and problems, because it just generates so much value. So actually, like in some ways, in recent years, I've been really trying to understand more about, so DAU there is daily active users, and if you have the right definition of active, and you've done well on all your metrics, but users are not retained, then you're actually probably in trouble. So yeah, so a wide variety of concerns. And we have also a wide variety of things in the paper. This is not a slide you're meant to read, but it's just like, yes, the paper is full of stuff and kind of war stories and issues and problems that we had. And some of the main ones are listed. It's probably hard to read here, but I'm just going to go through like 3 of these because we really don't have that much time. So one is like, what's the validity of the metric? Are we measuring what we think we're measuring? This is, so Paul Thomas has done these wonderful slides, and I'm just choosing a small subset of them. So you should invite Paul to give like a 1-hour version of this talk, as some people may already have done. But like, I'm just picking, here's one slide, and I've added the term construct validity just to remind myself that, this is about saying that, in this case, we had very carefully gotten permission from some volunteers to have their affect, their facial expressions and things like this tracked during their workday. And so we had a paper at SIGIR where we said, okay, when they have, we were saying, oh, maybe a long dwell click is a good thing. You can actually see that that's associated with becoming happier. Is for example on the left plot, or when they have a reformulation that's associated with sadness or something. So you can actually see a connection between their click behavior and their facial expression. And so Paul's using this as an example of like, okay, we always look at clicks. We believe clicks for many reasons are related to search success and satisfaction in a system that has such a thing in its UI as clicks. But this is just a fun way of cross-checking the validity of clicks as a signal, was that we could see people's emotions even being related to the clicks. Another one is external validity, and the way we're illustrating this here is just that if a single user or annotator says that something's good, or if something's good for a particular user, let's say, then is it good for other users as well? That's one way of looking at it. I think there's lots of questions of external validity, and I added a slide based on Mark's talk at the end that kind of summarizes how I would look at some of these validity things. But another one that Paul lists is concurrent validity, which is just if you have a number of metrics that purport to measure the same thing, then how correlated are these instruments, measuring. In this case, it was a paper about preferences over beer, and how do these different metrics relate there. But like the way, actually, I moved that slide to the end. I'm going to have a slide at the end that talks about, actually, I have to run out of this meeting because after I speak, because there's another meeting happening where people are concerned about exactly these kind of things in Microsoft. So we have a weekly meeting where we look at the metrics not lining up and what are the complaints, where are the metrics working, where are the metrics not working. And some metrics that I'm responsible for internally in Microsoft, we're always asking people like, what surprising result did you get? Can you give me an example of where it went wrong? Where's your experiment? Have you run your experiment in multiple ways? And is it giving consistently like weird results? So like, I actually thought it was the next slide, but I put it at the end, like of mentioning that process. Given that just after I show that slide, I should actually go and join the meeting. Yeah, including, actually, it's fun, a meeting with, one of the people in the meeting is a guy, Mike Taylor, that I started working with 20 years ago in Cambridge. So we're still all working on these IR evaluation problems and trying to improve the products. In this case, searching for files and email in Microsoft products and Teams. All right, very brief mention of efficiency. So it sounds like you're Microsoft, so you can afford to measure all the things all the time, but it's not really the case. In fact, this even becomes an agility problem. So we've got people who are using our metrics, and if we say, well, before you can deploy a change, you have to measure in, all the languages or something, not just English. That's not exactly reasonable for a variety of reasons, and we're not going to go fully into it. But there's things to do with quality monitoring. There's things to do with, but overall, we want to have the maximum amount of information with maybe a basket of carefully chosen languages, not all of them, so that we can monitor the quality more easily. And there's a whole lot of moving parts that actually make it difficult to do a cheap, metric setup. And this even includes the online experiments too. So there can be like, you actually don't have enough users to do all the online experiments that you would like to do in some cases. So there's even things that are A/B tests with users can run into scalability problems. So yeah, there's more of this in the paper, but I just wanted to briefly mention that. And then this is a fun one. So organizational effects is probably hard to read, but the idea is you set up these metrics and people are trying to the equivalent of write a paper that everyone believes is a good paper that shows an improvement. In this case, the change will get deployed to the product. But they may choose to just the nice thing about this meeting that's coming up is that nobody believes the metrics. And actually, if you believe one metric too much, for example, you just have one test collection or one kind of paradigm, you run into trouble. So this is the Soviet nail joke, which is that the goal of the factory in the Soviet Union is to produce a certain weight of nails. And so what they've done is they've built one giant nail and achieved their goals. Like they've optimized for the metric. And then they changed the metric to say, no, produce a large number of nails. So they produce many, many tiny nails. So like if you have a metric and everyone optimizes for it, you get in trouble. And this is, of course, Goodhart's law. This is stated, any observed statistical regularity will tend to collapse once pressure is placed on it for control purposes. Another way of saying, the way I would normally say it is, if you have a surrogate metric for the thing you care about and you start to optimize for the surrogate metric, things go wrong because you'll get some improvements that didn't really help on your true goal. And you'll also fail to make certain improvements because they're not measurable using this metric. And so yeah, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can basically overfit to labels, you can overfit to clicks, you can overfit to, even I mentioned daily active users. You can overfit to this by, some of the things that Facebook were doing to generate more usage, but actually it ended up hurting their brand in the end because they were just over-focused on this. So none of these individually is good enough. This is a famous example we had where all the clicks are on the game Mahjong, but the human labels say that the Wikipedia page is the good one and the game is not the right one. So the CTR and the labels are disagreeing. That's just he also has this example of lock-in. It's not that important, but it's saying like, let's say you just believed in NDCG or you just believed in MIDI is the way to describe music, then that actually changes all the music you get. So if you lock into a single metric and you look at short-term changes is another issue, then you get in trouble. So I think like that's one of the key things is the organizational consequences of picking metrics. And so, yeah, I added this slide just about the participant runs, just like, without needing to talk about it that much. You can actually run many types of experiment. You can run, even with I'm calling it NDCG, I should have called it average precision. Whatever metric you're running with your test collections, you can run it on multiple test collections. And you can also rerun with slightly different variations of the system. You can do various things you can do Bonferroni correction, but you can also do a separate evaluation where you look at lists and say which list is better. You can also look at clicks, you can look at DAO. Maybe we'll have simulations. So there's lots of things people can do. And that's what my next meeting is about, and I do have to run out just after this. So yeah, overall, we just wanted to give our perspective on how we use metrics for making decisions, and there's way more examples and war stories in the paper about this. Thanks.